These villagers in the Simeon Mountains of the Gondar region of Ethiopia call themselves Beta Israel, the House of Israel. They are the black Jews of Ethiopia and trace their lineage to the earliest days of the Bible. When James Bruce, the 18th century Scottish explorer, encountered them for the first time, he wrote, "These are the ancient inhabitants of the mountains, who still preserve the manners and language of their ancestors. They are the only potters and masons of Abyssinia, and in this they excel greatly, and in general live better than the other Abyssinians, which in their revenge attribute to a skill in magic." To this day, the Ethiopian Jews are reputed by their superstitious neighbors to possess supernatural powers. In Ethiopia and much of Africa, smithing is associated with sorcery. The Falashas, as the chief practitioners of this craft, are viewed suspiciously by other Ethiopians, who fear the Falashas can cast an evil eye or Buddha upon them. After the Ethiopian Jews lost their independence in a series of wars in the 16th and 17th centuries, they were banned from owning land and branded Falasha, or outcasts. They adore a God of life, of righteousness and justice. Always in their thoughts, he inspires them with hope in a future of universal peace and harmony. In praying, they raise their souls to the infinite. They ask God to make Zion resplendent and to bring them back to Israel, their cherished country. And led by some of their religious leaders, they attempted to emigrate to Palestine, decades before the birth of Zionism in Europe. Sadly, their dream ended in disease and starvation.
For centuries, the Jews of Ethiopia dreamed to return to Jerusalem, to touch its stones and pray near the remnants of the temple. They imagined Jerusalem as a golden celestial city whose inhabitants were pure-hearted people, walking in streets in white clothing, a Jerusalem dream. Once they arrived in the land of Israel, the newcomers were privileged to see the Jerusalem that they had been longing for. The dream had come true.
As this is a documentary about the Sefwi's journey, it's also about something a whole lot bigger. This film goes beyond the age-old debate about who or what is a Jew. I'd like you to meet the Jews of Sefwi Wiauso, a community in Ghana that has been practicing Judaism for over 2 centuries. Ghana is a very religious nation, the 2 major religions being Christianity and Islam. The Sefwis have always stood out for their very different customs. They've celebrated the Sabbath on the Saturday rather than the Sunday. They've circumcised their sons 8 days after birth. They've followed these kosher dietary laws. I would like to tell the Sefwi story in this film. Not just the story of their history, but of a story that's about to unfold. In the fall of 2012, I will be bringing 8 members of the Sefwi Wiauso community to the birthplace of their religion, Israel.
Shema Israel.
In Israel, we'll visit the holy sites. We'll meet communities of Jews from different backgrounds. We'll meet African Jews who have been on a similar journey. And hopefully we'll find some much sought after answers about the Sefwi's history.
From deep inside Africa, a sound is emanating that is causing reverberations around the world. A sound of a people casting off 2 centuries of colonialism, returning to what they say are their native roots.
I know from birth I'm a Jew. Only I know that my forefather missed the way.
I grew up alongside every other Igbo youth. We kept on hearing that Igbo people came from Israel.
There was a story my mom told me at the age of 6 years. I never forget. He said, the Igbos are Jews.
Practice, ritual, diet, and song. This is the story of the Igbo, 25 million strong, a people once under siege by their very own government.
Biafra declared its independence.
And a people once captured and shipped across the Atlantic by the hundreds of thousands. A people who helped build America, and a people whose descendants are now discovering their Igbo roots, raising questions of cultural identity for countless African Americans.
Many African Americans actually do not know that they have Igbo heritage. The chances of their being Igbo is much, much higher than their chances of coming from Ghana or from Western Nigeria.
If you're from the right county in Virginia, you probably have a 60% chance of having Igbo ancestry.
It's a story of the strength of belief, ancestry, and community.
This little village in Zimbabwe is a long way from the Holy Land, but DNA evidence says that the Lembe tribe which lives here are direct descendants of an ancient line of Jewish priests who fled the Middle East over 2,000 years ago. According to Lemba pastor Perez Hermandishi, the DNA tests have legitimized their long-claimed ancestry.
History has been, unfortunately, has been recorded. There are no written documents about our history, but our ancestors, our forefathers have been telling us about our history. They say that we came from Israel.
The findings are the work of a British scholar who spent 2 decades researching the Lemba. Professor Tudor Parfit of the School of Oriental and African Studies in London says that though the genetic link is remarkable, one of the Lemba's holy artifacts might be an even more important discovery.
It was an extraordinary moment to see that these oral traditions, which seemed so unlikely and so dodgy, were actually confirmed by hard science. And it was at that moment that I realized that their stories about the Ngoma, which they associated with the Ark of the Covenant, and which in terms of its functionality was exactly the same thing, I thought, well, they said that their priests brought it from the Middle East. These priests share the signature with Jewish priests who are now shown to be descended from the Jerusalem priests. There must be a connection.
Concentrated in the shadow of the Soutpansberg Mountains in the far north of South Africa.
I'll be honest, I came into this village and the first word I heard was shalom,
yes.
A Hebrew word.
Yes.
How is that possible? How is it that the Lemba are speaking Hebrew?
The Lembas are the original Hebrews, and they were scattered, as you know, and they crossed into Africa. So they were scattered all over. So in South Africa, in many parts of South Africa, you find the Lembas who are actually Hebrews.
Hebrew. So the Lembas claim to be descendants of ancient Israelites?
Not claim, they are.
They are?
They are.
Okay.
We are the original African Hebrew. We are scattered all over.